over at the St. John's Church, the tradition, as we get ready to talk about all the news to come. And sir, I'll let you continue on.
Thank you. Well, and I appreciate, I think no better way to start the day in a new administration than to accentuate how important the role of faith plays in their lives and in all of our lives. So, but to your point, Bill, I think the executive actions, at least the ones that we're familiar with, fit perfectly in with the president's agenda. They're about the border, they're about the economy, they're about inflation, and that's what the American people voted for. That's why we had the huge mandate. The president wanted a decisive mandate this fall, and he's moving forward on implementing it. We want to do everything we can to be supportive and to be good partners as we move on an agenda that I think gets this country back on track. And we are desperately off track after the last 4 years.
I have a question then about getting back on track. One of the ways you need to do that is by confirming the president's nominees. Call for number 4 here is a list of cabinet nominee votes today. Senator Rubio at 4:30, John Ratcliffe at 4:45, and Kristi Noem, maybe, I think you said 5:30 p.m. tonight. How quickly do you think the Senate will be able to move? And does it make a big difference that you have a little bit of cushion with your majority?
Well, it's great for us to have the majority. What will make it challenging and difficult, Dana, is how much the Democrats want to fight on all these noms. And if you look historically, President Obama got his first 12 nominations through in 15 days. It took Trump 43 days the first time around. And so we want to get back to the Obama standard, and we're hoping that the Democrats will cooperate, particularly on these national security nominations, but we're going to grind them out. And hopefully, I think Marco Rubio is a colleague that should go fairly quickly, we hope. But then we start getting into some of the others, and we're just going to grind them.
See?
Yeah.
Dana, this is my 7th inauguration. I don't recall a time when we were given pictures inside St. John's Episcopal Church. Bravo to technology for bringing this to us. We are told that Boris Johnson is inside that church. So is Jeff Bezos, as is Mark Zuckerberg. And I think if you look between the crowd, you can see our former colleague Pete Hegseth sitting there as well in that red tie. Sir, you wrote a piece for FoxNews.com. It's called "Congress is Ready to Work with President Trump to Deliver on the Mandate from Americans." You just touched on that. Will there be any rub, at least on the Republican side, this time around?
Bill, I think that Republicans united. We met yesterday at the Blair House with President Trump, the Republicans did. And of course, he ticked off, went through some of the things we want to get done together. But it really does, he talked about it in his executive actions, the things he's going to do later today. But it's renewing American energy dominance, strengthening the economy, rebuilding the military, and securing the border. And then, of course, we've got a huge tax increase at the end of the year, $4.5 trillion tax increase on the American people if we don't act to extend the current tax policy, the 2017 Trump tax cuts. So it's a full agenda. We have a lot to get done, but it's consistent with what he campaigned on, and it's consistent with what the American people said they wanted to see. It's a decisive mandate and one we intend to work with them to implement.
One thing that doesn't seem consistent is the policy of the United States government when it comes to TikTok. And you had a bipartisan bill that was passed and signed into law. The Supreme Court has heard the case against it. They voted unanimously to say, no, this is the law as passed by Congress. It has to go forward. President Trump says he wants to try to fix it, save it. But there is not unanimity on this issue and the concern about China having this tool in America. What do you think happens?
Well, I mean, I think that this now falls on President Trump's watch, and obviously he has views on this issue, and that'll shape, I'm sure, the discussion going forward. But I believe in the reason Congress took action, and I think the reason the court upheld what the Congress did, is because we view this through the lens of national security. And China is a threat to the information, the privacy of the American people. They manipulate the algorithms that control what Americans see online. And that's a dangerous place to be because they are a wholly owned subsidiary of the Chinese Communist Party. So I don't think that there's a lot of room here. I think it ought to be, if we can figure out a way to get it owned by Americans.
What about, he said, what about 50-50 ownership, American government and Chinese government?
I'm without, I guess I'm going to comment on a specific proposal or solution just yet. I think we want the president obviously to have a chance to take a look at this and perhaps figure out a path forward. But I think in the end, it's going to have to include getting the majority control out of the hands of the Chinese Communist Party.
Yes, Senator, I asked about that rub with Republicans because Senator Tom Cotton was quick to really jump on this yesterday afternoon and after the decision was made on TikTok, and we're going to see how that develops. Meanwhile, 35,000 feet, Senator. What do you think of the accomplishment here that we're watching today? 132 years, non-consecutive terms. You think about all the court cases from Washington, D.C. to Palm Beach to New York City, the assassination attempts. What has he accomplished politically in American history now?
I think, Bill, his first presidency was historic in terms of the things that he accomplished on behalf of the American people and the respect that he brought for the United States on the global stage. And then you saw this campaign. Nobody has gone through more to get elected as president of the United States than President Trump has. As you pointed out, I mean, this is it was a historic campaign, historic election, and again, an incredible mandate from the American people, which he intends to deliver on, and we intend to support him and be good partners in getting that agenda done.
So we are looking at the pictures of the St. John's service. We anticipate that could be finishing in about 3 or 4 minutes, and then we would see the family, of course, leave first. And I should point out that Barron Trump is there, and also Melania Trump in a hat for the ages. That is one beautiful outfit that she has on. I did want to ask one thing. This is going to sound technical, but you could explain it in terms that people could understand. There is something that can be done in addition to President Trump with the executive orders. Mm-hmm. There is the Congressional Review Act, mm-hmm. which means what? For what you can do to try to help Donald Trump as he tries to pull back some of the things that Joe Biden put forward as president.
Well, there's a mechanism was created about 30 years ago called the Congressional Review Act that enables the Congress to vote on what we call a resolution of disapproval. So if it's a regulatory action taken by an administration, and there's certain ones that qualify, and there's a look back period, mm-hmm. that you have to fit within in order to be eligible for consideration on this. But we are scrubbing everything. He's going to do a lot by executive action, but we also want to do our part. And if we can use a Congressional Review Act to get rid of some of these onerous and burdensome regulations that the Biden administration enacted,
and here
which
we
have a huge impact on the economy.
Okay, so that's happening. There's J.D. Vance, Vice President-elect, leaving the service there. And then you see this picture from the White House. From the steps there, you have President Biden and First Lady Dr. Jill Biden, and they will receive the President-elect and Melania Trump. What's interesting is this is about a 2-minute drive.
Right.
So just so that you get to orient everybody there. And Bill, I know you and I have covered a lot of these and been there for one of these for myself in January of 2009. Mm-hmm. And it was a cold day, but this is a very special moment in the handover of power.
Yes, indeed. Speaking of the weather, it's 26 degrees in Washington, feels like 15. Could get a bit colder throughout the afternoon because the winds from the northwest are going to pick up a little bit. So maybe it was a good decision to go inside. But I can remember 2009, Dana, standing out in the National Mall when Barack Obama was sworn in for his first term. And it was a chilly day in our nation's capital, but we survived. I think yet again, we'll survive again today. One thing that's not clear is who gets inside the rotunda. Who gets the special ticket? I guess we could call them golden tickets during what Trump calls now the beginning of another golden age in American history and political life. In addition to that, the room behind me, known as Emancipation Hall, is the Capitol Visitor Center. It was opened in 2009. It's pretty big. I'm not going to lie, but I don't know of any president who probably wants to be sworn in at the Visitor Center, and hence the reason why they go to the Rotunda. So in total, I think 600 inside the Rotunda, anywhere between 1,300 and 1,600 seats behind me. I'm also told through the Secret Service here, there will be standing room. So, you add it up, maybe you're talking 2, 3, maybe at tops 4,000 people in total. So I think that would be wall to wall for anyone's standards, including Washington, D.C. today. Danny, think about this picture here from the church and what we just saw with the outgoing administration. January of 2017, when Donald Trump and Melania came and they were met with Barack Obama and Michelle there on the steps, same scene, beautiful red carpet. and Melania delivered a gift to then First Lady Michelle Obama. But 4 years ago, it was very different. Donald Trump
Yes.
and the First Lady left on a helicopter before Joe and Jill Biden showed up. And I remember standing on the Capitol here on the West Steps on the other side, and there's a tradition for the outgoing president. Marine One, the helicopter, takes the outgoing president and First Lady, gives them a quick whip around tour of Washington, D.C. So you go over the Capitol, and then you zip to the north end of the White House and shoot straight across the South Lawn, then out to Andrews Air Force Base. And that really is your final goodbye. And I remember years ago seeing Barack Obama's images looking out that window as he looked down on the White House after serving there for 8 years. That did not happen 4 years ago. It will, however, Dana, happen this year, and it will be very soon in short order.
I do remember how cold it was on Obama's inauguration on that January 20th, but there was also a warmth of spirit amongst the people who had came out to attend that inauguration and be on the mall. And we've been here for the past couple of days, and there certainly is an optimism and a joy, and I would say also a lot of patience for people dealing with the fact that there's a lot of changes. There will be a tea in the White House. So what you just saw before was the President and First Lady and Vice President Kamala Harris and the second gentleman, Doug Emhoff. They are all there at the North Portico, and then they will go in and they will have tea inside. And then after that, they make their way up to the Capitol.
So it looks like at the moment we are right on schedule. My TikTok, as we call them, have them leaving the church at about 9:30 Eastern time. So that's about 9 minutes from now before they head on over to the White House. Dana, I think it's awesome that we had literally the images, not just from inside the church, but apparently there's a live stream that viewers can watch at home. So hello, 2025.
And so now you have a couple more people coming out of the church service there. You have to have everybody in place before the motorcade can go. Here we go. There's the first former First Lady and First Lady to be in a couple of hours, Melania Trump and President-elect Trump coming out of the church service at St. John. And reporters shouting questions, and so far he's not going to answer them. There's another shot of the President-elect and Melania Trump headed to the motorcade.
Go to your work. Go back up.
Mr. President, any response to the pardon? Mr. President, how is this different for you from 8 years ago?
Dana, there's going to be a lot of moments over the next several hours where we're just going to pause and listen and take our audience into each and every moment that we can. And at some point, he'll answer those questions, maybe by the time the day is over here. You and I and a few of our colleagues were talking last night, and I made the comment that Trump seems to be a different person this time. And I say that because in 2016, 2017, he'd do 3 interviews a day. Maybe some of them were on the phone, but you could talk to him at 8 o'clock in the morning. By noon, that interview was done. You could talk to him at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. By 8 o'clock, that interview was done. He just seems to be a different person now. And how he goes about that is going to be something that's very interesting to watch. Kayleigh McEnany has seen that up close and personal. She served under the 45th president's term, and she joins our coverage now. Kayleigh, good morning to you. What are your thoughts at the moment as we watch together?
Bill, I look at this image and I can't help but think about 4 years ago. I was standing right there alongside President Trump. There were a few others there. Mark Milley, ironically, was just off to the side. But we were in front of St. John's Church, and it was boarded up, and there were the riots that were occurring. Of course, it was a very tumultuous summer in 2021. And President Trump said, I want to go to St. John's Church. I want to march there the day after. It was burning, and he stood in front of that church, and it was a sign of strength. And here we are 4 years later, and you just think of all that he's overcome. 2 assassination attempts, winning a primary in an unlikely fashion, winning a general election again from a boarded up St. John's Church with graffiti everywhere. to a victorious moment for the American people.
And you think also, Bill, about the security for this moment? Any administration of the country is more vulnerable at a time of transition than any other point. So you have a very robust security in this city, and appropriately so. And again, here we are waiting for the motorcade to get all set up so that the president-elect and the first lady can get their family all together there to the North Portico. Again, about, what do you think, a 2-minute drive, if that?
If that,
Yeah.
they clear the roads for the president. Yeah, and executive orders, of course, on the way, changes for the country, signing some immediately after being sworn in. And then apparently, according to Jason Miller at Capital One Arena in front of supporters, 200 executive orders. This is a different America in just a few hours.
Kaylee, I think for our viewers at home, we've been here a couple of days now. The best way to get around Washington, D.C., frankly, is to walk. Because if you want to drive anywhere, good luck. It's going to take you a very long time, even if you're successful. It sort of takes us into another new era of security. And, you know, you used to be able to come to Washington, D.C. 10 or 12 years ago, and you could go right up to the gate of the White House, but it gets more and more difficult with each passing year and each passing term. And I think, given the attempts on his life this past summer, that it's not going to get any better. They're not going to take more walls down. They're just going to put more walls up. Kaylee, when you think about the news that hit about 2 hours ago on the pardons, January 6th committee, Mark Milley, Anthony Fauci, some of our guests earlier were arguing that some Republican senators will not let these issues go. Do you think, however, that a part of this government has made the decision to move on, especially when you consider that Trump has the possibility that he could pardon some of those involved in January 6th?
You know, I think, yes, President Trump has indicated that today he's going to speak about unity. I think he also believes in fairness. I don't know that investigations will end. Senator Rand Paul, to your point, has said, you know, he's strengthened his resolve to look at Dr. Anthony Fauci and some of the decisions made. So accountability is important, especially, Bill, when you drop the pardons against the background of prior statements. You know, Adam Kinzinger, one of the J6 committee members who received a pardon today, said on CNN, I only know of one reason to seek a pardon, because you're worried about being guilty. Now, Biden said in his pardon, this is not implicating anyone in guilt. There's no suggestion anyone committed a crime. But when you have background statements from Schiff, from Liz Cheney, who pointed to Scott Perry seeking a pardon as if it was something nefarious, and he denied that, of course. But you have this background of, some would say, hypocritical statements. I think this president believes in accountability, but he also believes in moving the country forward. And it's up to him to strike that delicate balance. I think that's what the American people would like, is moving forward on issues in politics.
Well, I have two questions about it, because one, do these stand up in the court of law? I don't know about a preemptive pardon.
Yeah, so one of the examples they point to is Nixon. It was a sweeping pardon for acts that had not even been committed. So it was very sweeping in its breadth, historians point to. I know when preemptive pardons were looked to in the past, Trump did not give preemptive pardons. However, it was looked into, and indeed, preemptive pardons were something that was permissible.
Here we see, Kaylee, the motorcade is now starting to roll. We said it's about a minute and a half, and they will see the President and First Lady Joe Biden and Dr. Jill Biden in their final hour at the White House. And then they will depart. They'll go to the Capitol, and immediately the moving trucks start and the movers start switching out the White House. But what's interesting is that they're returning to the White House. And so it'll be interesting to see what changes they make, if any. I was joking with Hemmer. I said they might say, I knew that sock was hiding, in that drawer right there.
And it's funny, Melania Trump apparently picked out the furniture months ago, so she knows how to do this time. And in his inaugural address last time around, President Trump in 2017 said, the Obamas were very gracious to us in this transition and helping us along the way, but they really came in knowing nothing. Coming into a White House, not ever having been there, of course, ever having slept there until 2017.
And let's just tell people here, so where President Trump slept, you see the white tent there on your screen, that's just outside of Blair House. Blair House is a beautiful townhome that has been used for a lot of diplomatic receptions, but it's always the place where the president-elect stays the night before inauguration, and that's where the first family stayed last night. And then right along there, that's called Jackson Place. Those are a row of townhomes that were saved by Jacqueline Kennedy. in 1962, I want to say, if that's correct. So the motorcade's going to come around from St. John Church and then come right through there, Bill, before pulling into the North Portico.
You can see it, on the campaign trail, especially this past summer and last spring, I would say. You could hear the former president at the time, President Trump, talking about returning to that big, beautiful house. Of course, he was talking about the White House. We'll pause in a moment here when the Trumps meet the Bidens on those steps.
We don't
White
have
House. One thing we haven't really touched on
She
because
will
we
just go on.
we don't have a lot of details. What does he
next
say in his speech?
That's the only thing.
In 2017, the phrase
Well,
American carnage was
internal
what a
update
lot of
as it
people
is
picked
right
up
now,
on.
I have
And,
273
I went back
agents.
and looked at Joe Biden's speech from 4 years ago. He used the word democracy 11 times. He used the word either unity or uniting 11 times.
Overall,
And that's
I'm
really how
much
he
longer
started
than
to
she.
cast the framing for
And I know what
the beginning of
I-
his
I
term.
know what
Now,
the
you
issue is.
can argue whether or not the unity and the uniting and all that stuff happened or not, but
issue.
that's
That's an
was a
update
big
we were
part of
running
his message, and what
That's right.
Trump's message is still
They're getting out
remains to be told. Yes, back at the Blair House.
And yeah, so they're
I'll
going back to the
finish
Blair
it
House
the next
first. And can we
1 to
bring
2
in Karl
days.
Rove, who is sitting here to my right? Karl, this tradition is a
The
long-held
problem was
one, and
that
it's a
the
beautiful
British
transition of
Library
power for our country.
that
And
got,
what an example it sets
I
for the
was
world.
out in
Yeah.
7 months.
Yeah, wonderful.
Issue.
Blair House, which is
That's
the Blair family,
it's
was part of
maybe on
the Lincoln
80% of them.
administration, and it was gifted to the
And,
country.
then we have a
St.
lot of,
John's, the
I
Church
tried
of
listening
Presidents,
and
which has
but
held this service for
for some reason
over
that
100 years.
oh sorry,
and,
you called it
it's a great way for
break fix.
transition from one
nice
administration
many
to another,
break
from one party
It's,
to another, from one
a lot.
president to another. It's great to have some items that are
Ellison,
traditional.
that's me.
Karl, I was just mentioning the speech. What do you think? You're a man of words.
You have-
What does he say today?
Well, this is a moment where a president, dons a new garment, if you will, and
Don't worry,
sets a
it's
tone
running
that
as
will
we.
exist at
Ellison,
least for
it's
the
running as
opening
we speak.
months of the
So don't worry about
administration. And it's a time where presidents understand generally that they can unite the country and that they need that unity. There are a great many people who supported the president elect who will continue in that support, but there are others who did not, who at this moment are willing to give him the benefit of the doubt if he strikes the right notes. And this is important for a president. I mean, we're a narrowly divided country. Donald Trump won an overwhelming mandate in the Electoral College, 320 some odd to 216, but he also won the popular vote by 1.5%. So this is a moment where he can unite
What
people
I'm doing
behind him who might have been on the other side in the election, but are looking for reasons to
it
support
doesn't
him.
matter.
And the
It's not a
unity
problem.
is there. The issues on which he
It's not a
ran,
problem.
doing something about
Really
inflation,
straightforward.
controlling the
But
border,
what I'm doing is I
restoring
exported
America's
this
strength,
over off like
standing
agents
for traditional
cosmos,
values. All these things are
and
things in
then,
which
I
there's a majority of
generate
opinion in the
the,
country today
inventory
behind
file,
him,
and
and
then I
he
look up
can in his
against
remarks tomorrow by
the rollout
forbearance
list.
and unity and optimism.
But some of the IP addresses you have put in there,
Strength,
Ellison,
he can
They are
rally people behind him,
not
and
right.
that will be important to his success.
I don't
He
know
has a
why.
limited window. The next year is going to be vital to the success of his mission and the achievements that he wants to embody in law and statute and fact. And
I
public
use, your
opinion, as
colleague,
Lincoln said, is all. And he has an opportunity today to rally public opinion behind him.
So President Trump will be
No,
holding at
as-
Blair House for
I-
about
I don't
15
know.
minutes,
I
we're told,
use
maybe
your
about
colleague
13 minutes from
every time
here.
this
We continue
Then I
to
send
see
it
some
over to
family
him.
members who are
He's
or
pretty
guests
fast to
of the
respond.
President and First
Check.
Lady from the St. John's service. In the meantime, this morning, Joe Biden made some news, Karl. He
Cedric.
did some preemptive pardons today as we look at the Vice President Kamala Harris and her husband, the second gentleman, Doug Emhoff. Maybe we're going to see. Let's see.
No, I
let's
just
see, that's
I just said
being
it
okay.
privately to him,
What about
and
these
then I have an
preemptive
inventory
pardons
file
on
I'm
his way
filling
out?
up, and then Friday
Well,
or
first, it's
Wednesday meeting.
discretion that we
will get
that
sent
he
out
felt
to
he needed
everybody.
to do that, and I thought
Of,
Adam Kinzinger,
Asian issues,
who's
what I
who's
come
the
across.
recipient of one of those pardons and objected to it, said, "I didn't do anything wrong. I don't need to be pardoned."
That way,
But it says something about the state of where we are as a country, the division,
Yeah,
the
but-
And
polarization.
but
here
some
we
of
have,
the
let me
sides-
just jump in here. There is Vice President-elect J.D. Vance and his lovely wife, Usha. They have 3 children. And this is the moment where they are going to meet the Kamala Harris and Doug Emhoff, and then
So
they'll
how
go
many can there be
inside Bill
on
for
a full list?
tea. There she is in a beautiful pink coat.
Shoot. Okay, can you generate a new list to me? Lookup list. That's the only thing. There's only 8 nice problems, and I need to deep dive with them with Andreas.
Very British that they go for tea, not coffee.
Yeah, but that would,
You know, Dana and
That-
Carl, just learning the protocol takes a minute.
I understand, but this would not help
And that was
before
very
I have
gracious.
fixed this problem.
It sure
Gracious
was.
and
you know.
lovely.
Trust
and
me,
we all
when I'm
do it
finished
for
running
each other.
this,
Yeah, it was kind of a cute moment, actually. So they'll
I-
go in, they'll sit down,
Allison,
they'll start
Allison,
their
it's not
conversation.
stopping.
And,
It's
you know,
it's not
Carl, I
stopping
asked
that.
Senator Thune this. He
It's not-
let off our coverage about half
Okay,
an hour ago.
I export a
How
full
much
list over
consideration
all
have you
offline,
given to the
okay?
political
The
accomplishments that
problem
Trump
is
has done
she's
here?
running
Through the
through
court
it.
cases, the
First group
assassination
do not care
attempts
if
in
the answer
January
is
6th
online
and
or
4 years
offline.
ago.
It would
And the
just
fact
deploy
that he's,
as it has to.
we have
okay?
not
And
seen
update.
his kind to win
I
a
need to make sure
non-consecutive
that the
term
agent
since
is
the
online, and that's what I
1890s.
need to do
You're
now.
a
Trust me.
historian.
As soon as I
Frame
get
it.
all the agents online in
Well, we've never
sites
seen
in
anything
max
like
3
this. This
days,
is nothing like
you will have a number
Cleveland's
that I
return in
would just
1892. The
offline.
1888 election had been very close. The 1892 election was similarly close. But in the intervening 4 years, Cleveland had sort of retired to New York and had kept his political life alive.
Yeah,
but
I know.
you know, he
I know.
suffered nothing like Donald Trump has suffered
Well,
in the
I'm-
last 4 years and persevered.
I cannot run.
I mean, there's nothing. With 100 years from now, people will be writing about the extraordinary
No,
political comeback, the most extraordinary in America's history, of Donald Trump with the number of lawsuits and declared dead, and January 6th, and so forth and so on. And he comes back to beat not the man that he started out running against in 2023, but the vice president after the president is withdrawn from the ticket and declines to run in July of 2024. This is an extraordinary political story.
All right, we have the Nebraska Choir singing for us here. Let's listen in for a moment.
This is the sound of voices. This is the sound of voices.
Yeah. But it's more important we get the agents back online, so the check is correctly.
This is the sound of voices. Singing along with the wilderness. The rest behind it.
No, not at all.
This is the sound of voices.
Exactly.
This is the sound of
Well, I'm good. Yeah. No, it's okay. She said she would just jump on and off because she don't have working day, but she still don't. She still want to run, so we not get behind more.
This is the sound of one voice, one people, one voice, song for every one of us. This is the sound of one voice. This is the sound
Nah, not talk.
one voice. This is the sound of one voice. One people, one voice, song for every one of us.
Yeah, but that's again, if the device is online on the backside, of course that's there should not be a problem there. Yeah, it could be maybe we keep the Friday off because again, this week we are finished with Marriott, and then we should go backwards and get that completed, and then move over to the next one. Let me check. I don't believe. No, it's not. Yeah, we still have 1 day more. Tomorrow too. I still have from 1,014 down to 1,078. So we still have a small list to run tomorrow. So,
So beautiful, just so great.
okay.
They nailed it. That's the rotunda. That's where the ceremony will take place. If you hit Google Images, you can see Ronald Reagan standing in there in January of 1985, and there from the shot above, where the 600 select few will be given a ticket for entrance inside the rotunda. Then an additional, I guess, anywhere between 2,000 and 2,500 will be in the hall behind me here. Dana, to you and to Carl and to Kaylee, I would like you to address the following.
Maybe I did not mark the rest.
The following possibility. Years ago, ABC Sports had this line where Jim McKay would say, the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. And I want to ask each of you, and Dana, especially your time at the White House, about the irony of defeat. It's been brought up several times this weekend that Trump has a greater sense of success because he lost, he left, he thought about it, and now he has come back. And I don't know what you think about that, but how great is that possibility where you come here, you make mistakes, you learn, you leave, and you get a second shot?
It's very interesting. It's undeniably true. And especially if you just think in your own life, if you've had a setback
99%
and then you figure out a way to come back and you do it over and over again in your life. Sometimes it's small, sometimes it's really large. But having a chance for a do-over, you often don't get them. And this isn't so much a do-over as a undoing of what President Biden put for the last 4 years, which helped lead to the complete decimation of the Democratic Party. And Carl made mention of how actually close some of the elections were, like the popular vote, for example. But the vibes since the election have been greater, I think, for President Trump than it had been even in 2016, I would say, because you have a close-knit team. They know what they want to do. I think that Susie Wiles, the chief of staff, I don't know her. I am very impressed with her from afar.
Yeah.
The way that she's running things. And Carl, you and I worked in a White House where it was a pretty tight ship. Well, she seems to run one too.
Yeah. I don't know her. I've known of her for a long time. And I know people who've worked very closely with her over many years in Florida. And it's interesting. They're almost all of the same opinion, which is terrific individual. People loved working with her and for her. She created a good sense of teamwork and focus on the mission. And as you know, as we all know from our experience in that place, the chief of staff plays a vital role in setting the tone for the rest of the building and for the execution of the president's orders. But
they can just on the network
we don't have a lot of cases.
And then
we have plenty of cases where somebody sought the presidency and failed and then later won it. Ronald Reagan does not win the nomination in 1976. We only have one other case where a president ran, won, lost re-election, and came back, and that's Grover Cleveland. But he didn't have a successful second term. His term is interrupted by the worst economic disaster that we have between the 1830s and the 1930s.
Yeah, okay.
And he ends office reviled by his own party. Don't think that's going to happen in this instance, but as a reminder that you cannot project from victory to the end of the next 4 years. It's all going to depend upon The course of it will depend upon the leadership of the president, his focus, his discipline, and as the Prime Minister of Great Britain once said, events, my dear boy, events. They will intrude mightily into this, and it's going to be the quality of the president's leadership and the quality of his administration in meeting those challenges that's going to determine his second term's role in history.
They're going to make a lot of news today, Kaylee, with some executive orders to tackle the issues that even in our Fox News poll from the other week said consistently for the last several years, the number one issues are immigration, the economy, and inflation.
Yeah, and there was a Pew poll that 56% of the
And
country.
here we have Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner walking into the Capitol building to witness Donald Trump's second inaugural with his grandchildren, who he adores very much. And I got to tell you, they got a strong hat game going on today, Kaylee.
They do. And what a moment this is. You know, when Bill was talking about defeat, it came to my mind, you know, a lot of people think about January 6th and thereafter, but there was a year before that where there were a lot of defeats. It was the year when I was in the administration and COVID-19 hit. And you want to talk about a darkness that you felt in the West Wing as you looked up at the news screens in the press secretary's office, and there was a death count on the screen of Americans perishing when the president of the United States, Donald Trump, I got the call from the chief of staff, Mark Meadows, he has COVID-19. And for hours, we did not hear. We watched him go off and get treated by the excellent military staff that we have in this country. But we were worried about him, and he overcame COVID-19. He overcame the challenges of that year. And now he is walking to be president of the United States. Again, 2 assassination attempts. This is so unlikely, to Karl Rove's point. The summer of riots that we had, the George Floyd footage, which I watched with him, and he was distraught and heartbroken when he watched that as a country. There were so many challenges in 2020, and he rose out of that. He rose out of the ashes and is about to become 47.
And we watched more family members go into the Capitol Rotunda, where they will gather for the inauguration and the swearing in. I think we saw Don Jr. and his daughter Kai, who she's a special person. This young one is capturing a lot of hearts. So that's a beautiful shot of the U.S.
Sure
Capitol. It's just behind us here, but Bill, that's a beautiful blue sky.
I mean, if you're at home, it looks great, right? But if you're here,
And you can see Marine One there in the foreground.
Yeah, it is chilly in Washington. Maybe they made the right call to move it indoors, but I just think there's a lot of ironies right now that we can draw, because you're looking at these steps of the Capitol, and for years that's where the inauguration took place. And it was January of 1981 where Ronald Reagan said, no, I want to face the Washington Monument and look out upon the mall. And that's when they move it to the other side of the Capitol, which you cannot see from this particular shot. Just coming in this morning, you can see some of the scaffolding that's set up outside the White House. Some of the viewing areas are still established there. Late last night, they were taking them down one by one, but it's a long, I mean, it takes a month to clear this stuff out of some of the streets of D.C. But, you know, you think about Reagan in 1981 when he moved it to the other side. You think about Reagan moving inside in January of 1985. Into the rotunda that everyone's going to see and become very familiar with in the moments of our coverage as they continue here. And gosh, Dana, we were on the air yesterday when we saw 3 of the Israeli hostages being returned to their family. And if you watch that video, it's a tearjerker. It breaks your heart. Mm-hmm. It fills you with joy. It's something that I was talking to some of my colleagues yesterday. They've watched it several times, and it's hard to watch without crying, because when you think about what those 3 women went through, and they never knew if they would see their family members again. And in January of 1981, when America was caught up in this, in the American embassy in Tehran, when we were wondering the fate of our own men and women, and when Reagan came to that podium and the Americans were on their way out of Tehran, this felt like a new day. And I think for a lot of people who supported this president in his comeback, for millions and millions of Americans, today too feels like a new day.
Mm-hmm. This is certainly my earliest political memory was Ronald Reagan's inauguration and the release of those hostages. Carl wanted to weigh in here.
I want to play off of something that Kaylee said. Think about 2020 and what a terrible year that was. And imagine how the country would have reacted if Joe Biden had stood on the side of the Capitol and said, I want to thank my predecessor for Operation Warp Speed, which has delivered a life-saving vaccine that will save the lives of untold millions of people, and did it in a historic 1 year. I would hope that the former president and I could join together in recommending that the Nobel Prize for Medicine be awarded to the researchers and scientists who have delivered this. And I want to thank him for his leadership in this. It would have set whether it was at the inaugural or shortly thereafter, because the only reason that Joe Biden could have 1 million people a day or more vaccinated against COVID was because of the courageous decision of Donald Trump to set up Operation Warp Speed, and the efforts of his two predecessors in investing billions of dollars in the basic scientific research needed to develop the methodology that allowed us to know within 24 hours after getting the genetic material of COVID to identify what would be the possible vaccine, and to deliver that within less than a year, so that it could be tested and affirmed and then be widely distributed. It would have been a great way for the country to be brought together. That's what Biden missed in his opportunity. I hope Donald
Well,
Trump.
the other day, Kaylee, he said, Joe Biden in his final speech said that he had the best economic record and best job growth, and he never mentioned COVID. It was so annoying. But I don't want to be annoyed right now. I want to be in the moment, because here we have. Bill, you know what? I've got some sunshine on the back of me that I can't see. If you can see that on your monitor, thank you.
These are others arriving here at the Capitol, and we're going to see a stream of
Is that
folks
Laura
coming in.
Bush?
Yeah, it looked like it, but I only could see the back of her head. I could not confirm.
Carl?
We're getting a
Yes, it was Laura Bush.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's Laura Bush.
Okay, got it. Guys, a
43.
couple more things on these executive orders. It's being reported that one of them will say, change the name of Gulf of Mexico to Gulf of America. There's a reporting at foxnews.com that one of the executive orders will be to deny birthright citizenship here in the U.S. If you were following it last night, he vows to make the files on JFK and MLK, the assassinations, public. So there's a lot more news going to be made throughout the day here. Aisha Hasni is somewhere on Capitol Hill. Aisha, haven't seen you. Not sure where you are, but go ahead and identify yourself and your location.
I think we're separated by one street, Bill, but hopefully we'll get to see each other here soon. You are actually sitting where a lot of the spouses of the members of Congress will get to sit and watch the inauguration somehow in Emancipation Hall. They open that up for specifically the spouses and maybe some other folks that had tickets that can't fit into the actual Capitol Rotunda, where the capacity is just about 600 people. We got a really nice look at it overnight from Speaker Johnson's office. He kind of gave a little video tour, and you can see how the black chairs are lined up around this platform they've built where the president-elect will be sworn in. We're watching and waiting to see who shows up. We know that family, of course, the Trump family will be there, as well as those tech CEOs like TikTok CEO Shou Chew will be there, and Mark Zuckerberg and others. We also know that people who had tickets to the presidential platform will get to be inside that room, and members of Congress. And we're also learning that there is a small VIP group that's going to be there, some folks that the president-elect has invited. I can tell you that former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy will be seated in the Capitol Rotunda. We might even possibly see former House Speaker John Boehner in there as well, waiting to get confirmation about that. And then someone kind of unlikely, but we've seen the president reach out to in recent days, is New York City Mayor Eric Adams. He received a last-minute invitation this morning. His office did. I guess he got on a flight or a train, but he's headed down here now, and he will be in attendance inside the Capitol Rotunda. And just on that note, the reaching out to a Democratic mayor, I was reading the excerpts of the remarks that the president-elect will give once he's sworn in, and you know, Bill, you and I were reading this, and he talks a lot about common sense. Those words, those are the words that have been used a lot recently by House and Senate Republicans as they push these bills like the Lake and Riley Act. So they are trying to reach out across the aisle. Bill.
Okay, thanks, Aisha. We'll see you real soon from Capitol Hill. And Dana, we're about to see a moment here together.
What a beautiful shot that is of the White House, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, 18 acres there. And the president-elect's motorcade is now underway. They are holding for a moment just to make sure that Joe Biden and Dr. Joe Biden are positioned at the North Portico to receive them. We know that J.D. Vance and his wife Usha are already inside with Kamala Harris, the vice president, and the second gentleman, Doug Emhoff, We've got about 2 more hours for those titles. Bill?
You know, Dana, the clock says 11:47 for the swearing in. So by my watch, we're, 2 hours away from that. And based on the current schedule, it looks like we are right on time. And we need that, Dana, because it's written in the Constitution. So stand by. We'll watch it together now from the North Portico
Here we go.
of the White House. Well, it's tea time, Dana.
Waiting for.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, no, it's tea time at the White House, and just thinking about that here, there's, I mean, maybe a couple hundred people behind us here at Emancipation Hall, and they erupted in cheers as they saw the President and First Lady, incoming President and First Lady, on the monitor behind us. Joining our coverage, Jessica Tarloff and Charlie Hurt. And Charlie, it's the first time we've had a chance from here to hear from you today. Why don't you go ahead and kick us off? What are they talking about behind closed doors?
I bet it's a whole lot more civilized behind closed doors than what we've seen on the campaign trail for certain. But it really is. It's an extraordinary moment to stop and think about, especially considering where we have been over the past 4 and 8 years. And you know, one of the things that, you know, watching yesterday's victory rally, I guess it's the only rally we've ever seen inside Washington, D.C., but watching that and watching the enthusiasm that Trump supporters have for President Trump, or President-elect Trump at this moment, 8 years in, that's so amazing to me. I cannot think of a single politician that I've ever covered who, after 8 years blazing in the public eye at the center of politics, could maintain that level of enthusiasm. It really is kind of extraordinary.
Jessica Tarloff, let's get your thoughts here.
Yeah, good morning. Exciting to be with everyone on this historic day. Great to see the Vice President greeting the Vice President-elect with their spouses, and to see, obviously, President-elect Trump and Joe Biden getting together. It's what we all hope for in this. And I was listening to you earlier, Dana, talking about the vibes. And the vibes are definitely very positive, not only in the public surveys that we're seeing about, you know, close to 60% enthusiasm about this new term, but I even noticed last night, Usha Vance looking beautiful, and she was in Oscar de la Renta, and they did a custom dress for her. And this new administration is being greeted kind of in all corners, welcomed in and being made official kind of in all facets of the public eye. And I think that that's a really good thing for the future of the country. Democrats will oppose on the policies that they need to oppose on and that they feel strongly about. But I've been really heartened to see how the transition has gone. And I think it's very healthy for us.
You know, I remember just a couple of days before the handover between George W. Bush and President-elect Obama at the time, I said, oh, I'm going to miss everybody so much, and I'm going to miss it so much. And I remember President Bush saying, well, you don't have a choice. We have to leave at noon on January 20th. And so your next chapter is going to be great. And he was right.